Robert, I believe we have a failure in production in the background.
I'm watching the intro video and it looks great, but you guys aren't hearing it. So I'm just going to stop that and let's get this show rolling.
Okay.
There we go. Hey, there's David and Melissa.
All right. Welcome, everyone, to our Friday night comedy show. We are going to be taking a slight turn from comedy, though we will have some zingers, wingers, and all sorts of other things. We have an extensive panel today. I am joined by Montesaurus Rex, Bruce MacDonald, also David Ellis, and Melissa Hocking Hughes. Today is a day to live in infamy. I want to welcome right away Melissa Hocking Hughes to our first comedy show she's appearing on. Welcome, Melissa.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that intro. Look, a bit of pressure on the comedy factor, but let's see what we can pull out.
Well, we need some divine feminine genes to offer a different version of the comics of politics, because we have weird politics going on now. No matter who you are, where you are, these politics do affect you. And Bruce and blah, blah, blah. We also have David Ellis from his Fortress of the Ice.
The Fortress of Solitude, yes. So Superman.
Yes. It's wonderful.
And then we have Don Bruce in Costa Rica and Montesaurus, who is in the Victoria land.
Yes, Melbourne, Victoria. Yes, well, basically, whatever's happening in Canada, we've gone through it last year, so we're old hats at this.
Oppressed Commonwealth nation.
Yeah, they tested it out. It fared really well in the ratings, and so they've brought it. You've got oppression Canadian style now. So good on you. It's opening up well. There'll be T-shirts. Well, actually, not T-shirts. There'll be death camps.
Stickers. There's stickers. There's a whole bunch of stickers with F Trudeau being sold with a middle finger, and they're being sold out every day.
Right. So everybody, we want to give everyone a fair warning. This is a anything goes show. Though we are going to be talking about politics today and some of the things going on in Canada and Ukraine, because it is necessary. But at the same time, we're going to be taking the piss out of it. Okay? It needs to be done. It needs to be mocked with intelligent brains. And the mastermind of intelligent brains get ready to mock tonight.
Wang Chung tonight.
So let's bring up the obvious. Canada is becoming an empire. Will Canada take its first colony soon? And where will its first colony be?
Alaska. They're going to take Alaska. So finally the map can be complete.
I'm thinking the North Pole, actually, because that's my preference. Right.
Well, if Canada wants to be that world power, it will open up the northern route like Russia's doing as the ice melts, and Canada has all of their great northern territories with a northern sea passage route. That will be their next colony.
Well, I hear that the ice caps are melting, so I'm thinking that the Arctic Circle is going to be the new Caribbean, and so I thought ahead.
Oh yeah, once they annex Greenland, we're in trouble.
So everybody that is currently in the chat room, we want you to type into the chat what you think about what's going on in Canada right now. And I know we have some Canadians there. Are you pro-Trudeau, anti-Trudeau, pro-government, anti-government? What is your position on what Trudeau will do?
Well, at one of my Planet Collingwood's episodes, I think it's 2 or 3 weeks ago, I actually named it, Messa Boot, Find Oot, and that's what we're seeing.
So right now in the office of Canadian Premier, we have this man boy, blackface wearer, Trudeau, that is pretending to be a prime minister without powers, without any legal powers. But for some reason, he is taking power. Now, David has a law background, and he has been recently looking into, hold on one second, recently looking into some of the stuff. David, what is it that you have to present what's going on in the legal process here?
Here are the facts. I don't really deal with right or left politics, but I do deal with right and wrong. So here are the facts. The facts are that they do not have those emergency powers as yet, but they're acting like they have them. That's a fact. Here are the facts that a judge already ruled that the protests that are happening in Ottawa is legal. A judge already ruled on that, but they're ignoring it, and everybody does not know this. Nobody knows this. A judge already knew, the judge already said it was legal. All right, here's some other facts. Over the last 2 years, Canada has broken, like Australia, broken every clause of the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights that is possible. And the last clause has said that there is no possibility, no scenario where these rules can be broken. That's what the last clause said. For those of you who don't know what that document is, all the countries that you guys are living in right now, all of you, they signed a document at the end of World War II saying that they promise to respect human rights, right? There was no out. The last clause says there is no out of the human rights. You know what I'm going to do for you guys today? I'm going to take the document and I'm going to drop it into the chat if this chat will allow me to do so.
Yeah, and it's a legal binding document. It's a legal binding document. It's not like a little pinky swear where it's like, well, hope this works.
It's a legally binding document. You guys can read it for yourself, because part of the show should be a little bit about education. And if you guys have never heard of that document, it's now in the chat. You pick it up and you read it. So that document, it has 30 clauses on it. Every one of those 30 clauses has been broken by these governments. The last clause says there is no scenario where you can actually break the clauses of that document and it be legal. These are the facts. I'm not here to debate the right and left politics, but I'm absolutely 100% going to tell you what the facts are. These are the facts. You have the right to life, liberty, and the security of your person. That's a fact. You guys can read it, download it, right? If you want me to post that on GH's page so that you guys can download it, you could actually read it yourselves, because there's nothing more enlightening than reading that document yourself and putting it against what you guys have experienced in the last how many years. Here's another fact. Denying people access to their bank accounts is illegal in not just that document, but in every constitutional document. If you live in any country in the Western world, in most of the Eastern world as well, and that includes Australia, your constitution is a derivative of the UN Declaration of Human Rights. Okay, these rights are inalienable, they cannot be broken for any reason, and the country still considers itself legal. So what we've been seeing is that all the countries have gotten together and they've decided, you know what, we don't like these rights because that document is inconvenient if you're in power. It's inconvenient. So guess what?
Yeah,
if all of us break the law, we should be good, right?
Yeah. Well, that's what happened in Victoria. Is remember, Melissa, where they brought up, you're breaking human rights charter, or basically what? And what was the response from the government? Yeah, whatever. There's an evil disease. Yeah. The disease doesn't care about your rights.
That's actually what stated. He actually stated this disease doesn't care about your human rights.
Yeah. I mean, we do. The humans do. Yeah, and Premier Andrews said that.
Yeah.
The look at David's face.
See, and this is why at the end of last year, they changed the State of Emergency Act was running out because they run the clock down. That's when they came up with the pandemic bill, where it gives them power forever. and they changed it.
Because Australia didn't have a special powers act like Canada does. And has anybody noticed it's all the Queen's countries that have the most extreme forms of COVID rules?
No, Andrew, let me explain something to you. When you are dealing with legal matters, even that Emergency Powers Act that Canada is using right now, it is illegal by nature.
Yeah.
For those of you who are doubting me on this, I'm going to read what the Article 30 says, because I just read it to the panelists here. It says, nothing in this declaration may be interpreted as implying for any state, group, or person any right to engage in any activity or to perform any act aimed at the destruction of any of the rights and freedoms set forth herein.
Except for a dangerous cough, which comes around once a century.
No, there's no exception to that.
I know. I know. It's a comedy show. And also, the government actually just ignored it. Our federal government are like, oh, yeah, okay, cool. And the states are running rampant. Like Bruce and I've had conversations. That's the difference between Canada and Australia. It's different because the federal Canadian government is running this shit. But here it's the states, and our federal government are completely like a paper tiger. We're like, oh, okay.
So
that's an interesting point.
At the moment, as we speak here in Australia, there's been enormous protests in the Australian capital, which is called Canberra, by the way. A lot of people don't know that. They think it's Sydney. But there's been enormous protests. We had trucks too, David. We had the trucks go in there at the first massive protest, barreling in on Parliament House, which was awesome to watch.
Yeah.
And they canned that on the first protest. They managed to tow them all and do all sorts of stuff. So Australians are on foot. At least you guys are still on wheels. But actually, as we speak right now, again, there is another massive protest outside Parliament House in Canberra. Every Saturday, over a million people are piling in there, which is big for Australia. Australia's got a pretty small population. And they're there again today, and everything on every social media has been absolutely shut down. There is no visibility of it this week. There was last week and the week before, but right now you can't find it on, God forbid, Facebook or anything like that. And I happen to know quite a number of people that are there, and even they have not been able to share anything or post anything or of where they are right now.
And we'll also like to point out for people outside of Australia, Canberra's in the middle of fucking nowhere.
Yeah. It's like this gigantic pothole in the country. And that's, I'm trying not to be, it's just this big hole inland in Australia.
You know what I'm going to do for the whole of the show when you guys are speaking? Every time you say something, I'm just going to quote a clause. That's what I'm going to do. Article 90. Everyone has the right to freedom of opinion and expression. This includes the right to hold opinions without interference and to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas through any media and regardless of frontiers. Article
Does that include
20. Everyone has the right to freedom of peaceful assembly and association. No one may be compelled to belong to an association. Keep talking. I love this shit.
Unacceptable views. Where does that fit in?
So hold on one second. Hold on one second, guys. I want to bring Bruce in. Bruce is a native of Ottawadian. He's an Ottawadian. So, Bruce, you grew up in that area, didn't you?
I did, yeah. I grew up in the east end of Ottawa, a suburb called Gloucester.
What is it like for you in Costa Rica watching what's going on in Canada?
Well, it's really surreal on one level, and that is just the Bruce MacDonald who's been following news his whole life, but the Bruce MacDonald who can look at it intuitively, the Bruce MacDonald who, helped you write the Galactic Historian, sees a lot of stuff going on here that it's like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Andrew and I talked about this off air. It's very interesting. First of all, people think it's a joke, but it is not a joke. I am 99% certain that is the biological child of Fidel Castro. And the newspapers tried to dispel it in Canada in 2015 when he first got elected. And then it went away for a few years. And then an independent blogger actually went and accessed the travel records of Trudeau when he was prime minister, because everything you do when you're head of state is recorded. Apparently, Trump left with all the personal records of his administration, and it's a big issue now for the Democrats. But so it was all documented, and right at the time that Margaret, his wife, would have been ovulating, like the perfect time, 9 months later, Trudeau would have been born. They were vacationing in Barbados, and they said there's one other Caribbean island they visited, but at the request of the Trudeau family, they prefer that it stay out of the record. It was Cuba. Okay. So number one, is Fidel Castro's son. Now, the only other time preceding the Emergencies Act was what we called the War Measures Act. It's been used 3 times. World War I, World War II, and the Front de Libération de Québec, the FLQ, in 1970-71. They kidnapped a couple people. They wanted Quebec separatism. And the person who used the War Measures Act, which is the antecedent to the Emergencies Act that his son is now using, was Justin Trudeau's stepdad, Pierre Trudeau. and so there's a lot of sort of like familial bloodline karma here. It's very interesting that these 2 French autocrats, probably direct descendants of Marie Antoinette and her ilk, are reverting to this. Not only are they going further than Marie Antoinette, at least she gave them cake. Trudeau's shutting down everything, right?
And that's French cake too. Those French cakes are awesome.
So he's dug himself into deep, unless there's some global force to back him up that we don't know about, which I don't see, because world leaders are condemning it. The British Commonwealth, the British Parliament has condemned. This is really our parent government. If you're a Commonwealth country, you're the offspring of Britain, okay? Not so much America. Well, they're the bastard child of America. We're the legitimate of Britain. We're the legitimate children of Britain, okay? So, David is absolutely right with the law. So a question I asked before we came on air was, does Trudeau, has he even, you have to go through the House of Commons to invoke the Emergency Measures Act. Justin Trudeau is part of a minority government right now, okay? So, and I know for relative certainty that the other parties, the Green Party, the Bloc Québécois, and the Progressive Conservative Party, or the Canadian Conservative Party, yeah, that is CCP. I just noticed that. The Canadian Conservative Party are all going to vote against it, which leaves what we call this party we call the NDP, which is Canada. We'll call it the equivalent of the British Labour Party. They're very, very left-wing. At present, their leader is a Sikh man named Jagmeet Singh, who tweeted at the beginning of these. He tweeted in alignment with Justin Trudeau that these were racists and white supremacists behind this and extremists. Now, here's a little background on Jagmeet Singh. He and his family are connected to the Khalistani uprising in 1984, the Sikh uprising that saw Indira Gandhi murdered by her 2 Sikh bodyguards when she ordered the Indian military to invade and occupy the Golden Temple in Amritsar, the holiest site in the Sikh religion, okay? So the guy who is backing Trudeau and calling the protesters extremists is, to this day, 2022, legally not allowed to enter into India. He'll be arrested on sight. He's defined as an extremist and a terrorist in India. I mean, it's just irony on top of irony on top of irony. Monty Python could not write this sketch.
Yeah.
Over.
Now, hold on real quick. Just the other day, I contacted David and asked him if he knew what was going on there, if he knew what the Special Powers Act was. And he goes, "What's that?" And he didn't believe me. And I sent him a video to watch that was Viva Fry and Viva Barnes talking about the Special Powers Act and what was going on in Canada. And David, explain your reaction when you realized this was a real law.
It wasn't only my reaction. There were people that went to the most prominent law school in Canada. First-class honor students did not know that thing actually existed. It's not taught in law school. It's not taught on constitutional law. Regardless of any of this, every one of us, and I did advanced law with a lot of these people, nobody knows that thing existed. Nobody did. Constitutional lawyers did not know that existed. They dragged that up from 1988, okay? But I'm going to quote the law, the UNDR again. All are equal before the law, Article 7. All are equal before the law and are entitled without discrimination to equal protection of the law. All are equal to equal protection against any discrimination, violation of this declaration, and against any incitement to such discrimination. Do you want me to repeat that?
Nope, it's pretty simple.
That is the governance law of the world.
So basically our vaccine passports, which is creating a second-class citizen here in Melbourne, is highly illegal.
And here's the thing. I don't care about the left and right politics, vax and vax. Let's just deal with the right and wrong. Let's just deal with that. Okay? Now you're breaking the law. You're just breaking the law. Period. Point and simple.
Well, the issue that we've got, though, is there is no enforcement. We can see this across the planet. And for some reason it is. I was going to say this to you, David. Is it because we've got the confusion, or they've got the confusing smokescreen of Commonwealth law versus federal or state laws in Commonwealth countries? Are they using that smokescreen to pass these bills and sneak them, slip them under the table?
Yes, but Melissa, here's the thing. You're right about the enforcement part, because the fact of the matter is this is international law, which all of these countries are subjected to, right?
And we've seen in the international court, the Nuremberg's gone to the international court a few times now, at least 3 or 4 times now, and has been ruled as breaches of Nuremberg. But again, where's the enforcement? It's great that it's been notarized and seen to be, they're breaches of what's going on, but there's no actual enforcement, which brings me to you, Andrew. Clearly this needs to go to a galactic level of enforcement. What the hell's going on? What are we all doing here in this?
Well, there's one step above UN resolutions. Now, the UN is the most corrupt body in the world, and it will never bring a resolution about mandates. It will never enforce anything that's going to be dealing with the Nuremberg, even though that's what its original charter is, to enforce these special laws and rules. But ultimately, what's going on is individuals have to step up. Be it a truck driver, a shop owner, a healer, a lawyer, they have to stand up and lock arms and not just say hold the line anymore, because hold the line, in my view, is a losing term.
Yeah,
okay?
I agree.
It's a losing term. And I know there's a lot of people, they take such pride in saying hold the line. Hold the line means the cops will win. We've got to go beyond hold the line. And there are some unique things that people didn't realize, like when the major bridges were shut down, Coots, Surrey, the Peace Bridge, et cetera, et cetera. What people didn't also realize, the maritime industry the fishing industry wanted to join in on the protests. So they asked the truckers to come to the marine ports and block the ports. So in actuality, 160 points of access in Canada were being all simultaneously blocked at once. Okay, now we have an American truck driver convoy joining, one leaving from Texas, one leaving from Cleveland, Ohio, and one leaving from somewhere in Kansas. And they're all going to meet up on March 5th inside Washington, D.C. during this Ukraine crisis. Okay, and the irony is, we know our CIA, we know our DOD, all going to do whatever they can do to limit the actions and capacities of those people. And we're going to see the draconian things here in the United States. And is it going to be Emperor Biden next?
Oh, that was funny as hell. Can I say something? The irony that Canadians are more activists than Americans is not lost on me at all. So I want to ask Andrew a question. You're down in the US. Is it weird for you?
Beyond weird. Beyond weird. Right.
Can I just add quickly as well, with all this Canadian uprising or, defense of human rights, they're doing it in the fucking cold. And that's a technical term. It is. It's not cold. It's fucking cold.
It is.
That was the line they crossed, Monty. They put mandates on how many men could be in a nice fishing hut. That's what started the whole thing.
Yeah, you're only allowed 3, But my granddad likes to do this. But, I mean, they've arrested the same preacher 3 times. I'm not a fan of Christianity, But that's going way too fucking far.
Yeah.
Right. And at the same time, when the Canadians are out there in the cold, and that sparked into Paris, the yellow vesters came out. The vesters went to Brussels, and all of a sudden, draconian laws came down, and they stopped all the truckers and the convoys from coming into Brussels by threatening to take their vehicles and suspend their license for life. Right now, the only one sustaining it beyond Canada is Israel.
I was about to say, there's
the
a convoy
most militaristic state out there. You've got a bunch of Israelis who are joining Palestinians with trucks and cars and honking their horns in Tel Aviv.
Article 17. Everyone has the right to own property alone as well as in association with others. No one shall be arbitrarily deprived of his property.
And what is happening in Canada? They're dividing bank accounts, taking away the right. Right now, there is a very serious process in which the Special Powers Act, before approval, is limiting access to banks and giving all the Canadian banks unlimited powers to do whatever they want.
In breach of Article 17.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's also bank runs happening as well. And I saw someone mention on Twitter, I've been hanging out at Twitter way too much. Facebook's boring. Twitter's fun. But even just saying, there's a bank run will cause a bank run, even though there wasn't a run on the bank. For context, let's just go back 18 months ago. And I'm just going to say toilet paper.
You could have said that a few weeks ago. There was, Omicron, we've got a new wave, and I can't believe people hoarded toilet paper again. What the hell is wrong with you people?
Did you use all the previous hoard of toilet paper in a year? You have issues.
Raid your neighbour's garage, but it's ridiculous stuff.
That's the irony. These truckers deliver your toilet paper.
Yeah, that's right.
So if you're at home judging, the time is nigh when you will going to be needing that toilet paper. Forget about the food.
Well, before the convoy, before the Canadians cracked the shit, that's an Australian term, by the way. It sounds weird. What do you mean cracked it? You got upset. There was issues with the supply chain already, and then you have this on top of it. And they've been trying to push the economic supply chain, but you would have half of Canada rise up against the other half. The supply chain's still there because, Andrew, we were talking where the truckers that are protesting aren't ignoring their own job. Like the supply chain's still being fulfilled from memory.
Yes, because a lot of truckers are coming in for a week and leaving and going back to work for a week. The hardcore truckers that are there are the ones that already had a secured future until they took away the donations and monies. Because you realize there's, in the United States, one company called Swift has 126,000 trucks. One company. Another company called Werner has 86,000 trucks. And there's over 800,000 trucks on the roads right now between major companies and small companies in the United States. Canada is at about 400,000 trucks. So the amount of trucks that are in the convoy is a very small percentage that are blocking it. But that's the genius of truck drivers blocking the thing. I want to bring Robert on here. Robert's in Colombia. Robert, can you describe what the truckers in Colombia did?
Just after the start of the pandemia, I forget the instigation that started it, but the truckers here consist of food delivery, potato drivers, onion drivers, everything but the kind of trucking you see in the United States. And they chose to block every single major intersection that existed all over the whole country. So I could not drive 35 kilometers to Bogota, for example. I could hardly drive around the corner to get gas. There were so many trucks lined up blocking the road, and they're big trucks. They're not easy to move.
That sounds like France. France did.
Yeah.
The French, we're thinking about raising the postage stamp to 3 francs instead of 3, 4, whatever, and the whole country stops. That's the only country that the government's kind of scared of the populace because of that little revolution in the 1700s.
In my experience, if you affect the supply chain by 5%, you can shut it down. You just need 5%.
So real quick, Robert, can you finish the story where they're in the big cities, they could move the trucks, but the fact that the trucks were everywhere, you can't move them because there's not enough wreckers. You're muted, Robert.
I'm talking to the darkness. The truckers had to, they weren't moving any of them. Inside Bogota, they were getting military vehicles to come in and move, a handful, but it was nothing like when these guys decide to block up things, they have the power, and it's pretty impressive. I've never seen anything like it. I'm trying to look for a good picture of it right now.
So the amount of trucks that it takes to shut down a country like Canada is very small. Probably less than 1,000 trucks could do it. In Ottawa right now, it's only about 500 trucks at its peak. Okay. Now, the amount of wreckers that move big trucks is generally like 3% of the total trucks that are out there. So if Canada has around 300,000 trucks, there's only about 30,000 wreckers. Now, those are not heavy wreckers. Most of those are medium duty wreckers. They don't just move the trailers. They're separated. Now, the other thing is, once you lock a truck in a position and lock its air brakes, virtually the truck will not move. And what a lot of the Canadian truckers were doing is they're going to their front tire, their axle tire, and deflating it till it comes off. It comes off the rim, and that makes literally the truck immovable until they replace the lead tire. Also, they have these things that are called key locks in them. Basically, you have a little magnetic strip, and if you don't rub the magnetic strip over the spot on the dashboard, the truck will never start. It can't be put in gear, and the air brakes can't be turned off. Vast majority of trucks have this. Now, a wrecker driver who wants to take a truck that's locked in place, they can do it, but it takes about 3 hours to dismantle the truck's internal systems to unlock the air brakes, unlock the front axle, another hour to put the new tire back on, and then hope that there's no other system blocking it, meaning that because a lot of these truck drivers, they rewire their trucks to do whatever they want to do. Okay. So it makes it very difficult. It could take 5 hours for one wrecker driver to re-enable a truck to be moved. Now, the trucks in Canada, they were parked in such a way that it makes it nearly impossible for a massive wrecker to get in there and to move just one truck. This is why the genius of a trucker convoy like this, because let's say here in the United States, let's say, it's giant compared to Canada, and you have over 700 points of entry just on the East Coast. 7,000 trucks could do that. 7,000 drivers could do that. Shut down the entire East Coast.
And I just thought of a way out of this. Now, open your mind real wide now. What if they end the mandates? Just throwing it out there.
Exactly. They should. The candidates should have sat down and talked with them, but Trudeau chose the dictator two-step.
Yeah. Well, he basically fellatioed BLM when all that was happening. And it'd be interesting when the convoy started in the United States, how they're evil and it's worse than 9/11 and they're destroying the economy and everything else like that. But the peaceful protests of BLM, where 30 people died, $3 billion worth of property was burnt down, that good fighting for free. They've even got to the point now where freedom is a dog whistle for the far right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, Andrew, you remember this discussion we had earlier today. You want to know what really makes me angry about all of this, right? As I said, I don't care about the political stuff, but they had me watching Fox News Seriously,
Yes.
Alan.
Well,
They had me watching Fox. Like that hurt me. Okay, I had
the sacrifice.
Literally.
listen. Look. They had me watching news that I would not necessarily watch to get some kind of balance, because CBC in Canada is the government's bitch. That's
Right.
what they are, and I want balance.
Right. And the irony, I never thought we would see the political parties switch, where the Democrats and the Republicans switch president. Why aren't the Democrats supporting a modern worker uprising? Why are the Republicans and conservatives doing it? Why is Fox News the only one reporting on what's going on in Canada?
You know what kills me? The left side of the political spectrum, not that I give a shit about left or right, the left side of the political spectrum never met a protest they didn't like. Except this one. Because the neocons have joined the liberals to promote liberal warfare now, and that is what is promoting Ukraine right now. And Putin has been trolling the American media left and right until this gas pipeline explosion in Ukraine this afternoon. And we've got false flag after false flag going. And I'm going to tell you, Putin's going to troll them again. They're going to pull out.
Yeah, because isn't the Ukraine? It's been in conflict for like 4 years, eternally already. So
no. The conflict in Donbass ended during Obama's era. Yeah. Okay. It ended in Obama's era. The entire time during Trump, Ukraine was in an economic boom. Everyone was investing there.
Oh, okay. I only go. Can you? Because there's a band called Ginger, and they're from West Ukraine, and they've moved to East Ukraine because of all the war and everything else like that. So, but
that was a while ago. And threats are one thing, but the actuality, they're whatever limited stuff that was. It was actually just the oligarchs with mafia powers taking control again.
Interesting. Guys, what is the situation in Australia right now? I noticed that Melissa's hair is still long, so you're still locked down, or?
No, we're not locked down at the moment. We're not in Victoria. Is anyone locked down at the moment? What? I think there might be a small lockdown in Darwin, but that's a long way away from us.
Not the hardcore lockdown. We have restrictions. It's not a lockdown, but you have to wear masks. You have to have double dose, actually triple dose. They're changing it from vaccinated to up to date, because they want everyone to get the booster. So we're on to 3 jabs. And there's restrictions in nightclubs and parties. And it's just, but they're rolling it out. It doesn't there's no science behind any of it, because
numbers are going down.
Yeah. But people aren't going out, because also, like, Melissa, if you want to share, a lot of people going, like, I'm in my own personal lockdown because I love people. That's why I don't go near them. But it's very hard to actually try and plan anything a week out, because you may get infected of whatever strain, and then you have to isolate for 7 days. There are so many gigs that I could have gone to, but they've been kicked down the road because of, like, especially like, say, the Foo Fighters. Oh, we're touring here in a month, and we're all vaccinated. And then, 2 weeks later, oh, someone's sick, so we have to cancel. And there's been so many cancellations with tours. Like, the entertainment industry is basically hanging on by their fingernails at the moment. And if you walk through Melbourne city centre, it's a ghost town. A lot of people aren't going out, even because in the back of their mind, they realise they can still get COVID, even though they're being vaccinated or up to date. But they're not taking that chance. Like, driving's quite good now because there's so many less people on the roads. But
I got a joke for you guys. So in the Caribbean, the island of Barbados became a republic this year, right? Mm-hmm. So there was a curfew in place. I was there during that time. There was a curfew in place. I believe it was from 9 in the evening till 5 in the morning. So they pushed through this bill to become a republic. On the day that they became a republic, they lifted the curfew for 1 day. So that people could get out and party. I'm
Yeah,
like,
because
let me see if I get this straight.
Yeah.
Let me see if I get this straight.
Thank God the virus knows when you need to celebrate.
Right? We need to celebrate this, right?
Well,
The
virus only comes. Yeah, the
So-
virus only comes out at night, and then it took a day off to help the people celebrate this.
Correct.
Thank goodness.
No, you
I'm sure
can't.
we'll
No.
bring pine trees and stuff, but you just, you never know.
It's the same thing in England where you have to wear a mask to the restaurant. No, you don't have to wear a mask to the restaurant. You put the mask on to walk from the front door to your table, but when you sit down, you can take the mask off because apparently the virus only hovers at 6 feet.
So why don't we just mandate the virus to wear a mask?
Yeah.
Well,
that would work.
Sorry,
that's a
but
good
We got to
point.
give it a seat on Parliament. You got to give the virus an ability to vote in government.
And Mr.
Listen.
Bartzis, germs rights. That is impeding on the germs rights of the virus.
Bruce,
Come on.
did you see that House of Commons debate? That House of Commons debate, what happened on the Canadian House of... Believe me when I tell you, the virus would have spread in that debate. Okay? That was... I have never seen politics in Canada like this.
Did
like
you
they
see?
were going in after each other.
Well, Trudeau actually had it go at a Jewish woman for supporting swastikas. That didn't end well.
Look.
So
Yes, and she's an
That's
LBG
right up with Whoopi Goldberg.
Jewish woman.
so have you guys heard the backstory to that swastika flag yet?
Well,
No.
there was only
To the
one, and it
actual
was probably
swastika.
there was one flag.
It was some 50 something Eastern European dude in his 60s who I guess was saying, look, if we don't stand up, this is what we're going to become. That's what he was going around saying. Okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, and a Confederate, I don't even know what that means in Canada. You like the Dukes of Hazzard in 1974? I mean,
No. See, that guy with the Confederate flag had his own photographer. And so that's all agent provocateur, because everyone that's seen that, it's like, dude, you are way too fucking north for that flag.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with some history. There was a civil war, so see, Canada, Ottawa, from my memory, is way above the Mason-Dixon line. I'm just
Correct.
Exactly, way above the Mason-Dixon line.
Correct. And by the way, all the cliches about Canadians came to a screeching halt this week. Every one of them, including that cliche, that whole stereotype that every time something happens, a Canadian apologizes. Yeah, Trudeau torched that stereotype on the House of Commons floor. He was asked to apologize to the Jewish lady who he accused, right, of supporting swastikas. That hurt me to look at. I mean, you can't be that stupid. You can't actually repeating that. So he was asked to apologize once, twice, 3 times. This man refused to apologize. I'm like, are you not in Canada? Do you not know what happens here? Right? You bump into a Canadian and the Canadian will tell you, sorry. So I'm like, are you not Canadian? Do you not know what happens there? Like, even if you risked, even if you didn't think that you offended somebody, you say sorry as a matter of the fact that person became offended. That's what happens usually here. Okay, this is not like America where you just draw the guns and somebody's going to stand and somebody's going to lie down, right?
Surely this is showing his Cuban DNA, isn't it? Castro never apologized.
So every stereotype about Canadians just went out the door. Like, Canadians are peaceful people and they don't protest and they don't make look at this shit here. Like, the Americans are looking at us like, what the hell?
To misquote the Japanese admiral from
that's
1940.
our thing. That's not your thing.
From 1940, to misquote the Japanese admiral from 1941, Trudeau has awakened the sleeping moose.
That's funny.
So real quick, I want to bring Bruce in here. Bruce, you and I off there talked about how the ancient French powers of the Marquis de Sade is being reflective and going on in some of the choices in Trudeau. You mind explaining that to the panel and to the people listening?
So, most of our talk is usually in kind of a British common law, framework, and, in alternative media. And unless you were born in Canada, and specifically you had to grow up with them. So I was born and raised in Ottawa, Ontario, which was a bilingual town the whole time I lived there. And then it went completely French at the level of the Federal Civil Service, because to get a job in the Federal Civil Service, you had to speak fluent French. And really, when they later, under Access to Information, got a look at the Official Bilingualism Act, written by Justin Trudeau's father, by the way, it stated quite clearly that the preference was people born French who learned English. So the French have a way of, it's like the ultimate elitism. It's almost like the Indian dots on the forehead, maybe even worse than that. They have a sense of class and structure in their consciousness, and they have a relationship with power, which isn't as muted as the British Commonwealth, or isn't as egregious in the expression of its absolutism. So what happens when you get one of these, Napoleon Bonaparte types, which not physically, but psychologically, Trudeau has those insecurities, and you get him in a corner, what's going to happen is you're just going to see all of the ridiculous stuff that's happening right now. And as Monty so correctly, brought up, just look at, what led up to the French Revolution, how far, the peasants were pushed before. It was like a complete indifference to the lives of people outside of their class. And Trudeau reflects that. So what we're seeing is just this sort of despotic utility of power now. And it's not going to end well for him. It's not going to end well for him as well. I will also point out, for those of you who have been watching some of the live streaming, there are almost as many Quebec flags, the fleur-de-lis, as there are Canadian flags in the crowd, meaning that, there's a lot of Quebecers who agree with this as well. So Trudeau's father had this French penchant for display of power like you've never seen before. When he invoked the War Measures Act in 1970, a reporter caught him alone coming out of the House of Commons, our Parliament Hill, and had his camera crew there and asked him a question about, do we really need this sort of draconian measure? And Trudeau just humiliated the guy. He said, well, this is not a time for weak-kneed people like you, he said to the reporter. And it was almost like picking a bar fight, even though you can't really punch the prime minister. So look to see more of this in Justin Trudeau, unless his cabinet can calm him down a little bit. But because of the way he selected his cabinet, there aren't really a lot of highly qualified people around Trudeau. Probably the most qualified guy he has around him now, who's not actually in the party, but actively consulting him. David, help me out. I can't quite remember his name now. He was the governor of the Bank of Canada. Then he left to be the governor of the Bank of England. And he's back in Canada now and he's a member of the Liberal Party, and they're waiting for a ride.
I can't remember his name, but to add to your point, the vice premier of Canada, she's married to the media.
Yeah,
people don't get that, right?
Yeah.
She's married to somebody who is linked to New York Times. So I think he chose his cabinet in a sort of tactical way, right? And what surprised me more than anything else, Bruce, is in Canada, this man has, I'm going to have to say this on a public broadcast. I can't help it. Okay. This man has been embarrassing Canadians for a while now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. You go to India, you dress up in, you don't even know the style of dress, right? Yeah. You dress up, you got blackface. He's been an embarrassment to people in a while.
Media,
you never
assault.
You never
from the
really
reporter in BC.
But you don't associate him with having a lot of testicular fortitude. You know what I mean?
Credibility, integrity. There's a lot of words you could add to Justin Castro.
Right. You never associated him with this. So as Andrew and I had this discussion, because I'm wondering, where is this stuff coming from And thank you for saying that, Bruce, because I'm like, where is this stuff coming from? How are you on the House of Commons? They're asking you to apologize because you've insulted the House. The Speaker of the House looked at these guys and the look on his face. I have seen that look before. It's like, yeah, this is my last term as Speaker of the House. I am done with this shit. Okay. Right?
Yeah.
Can you imagine being a speaker there and seeing these grown-ass men going at each other like that in Canada?
It's just like primary school. Or, oh, Robert, stop that. But same with Australian politics. You look at it and like they still think they're in grade school or elementary school, whatever. It's like they're grown men. Recently, while the pandemic bill was being done here in Victoria, the leader of opposition was asking the Premier, Daniel Andrews, a question, and he wouldn't answer it. He would just basically insult. I'm not going to listen to you because your mate, blah, blah, blah. He's doing all that. And he was only asking a simple question. I can't even remember the question was, but this goes on for 3 minutes. He would, the leader would not answer the question. He would just speak without mentioning it all. And what I find interesting about Trudeau, if you notice, he always looks at the speaker, the Speaker of the House. I just realized he could be, well, he does talk to a conal shaped thing, but he's practiced his line because he's a part-time acting teacher and he's got some chops because he's just doing the same. It's so rehearsed, and he doesn't look at the other side of the chamber and look at the opposition. He looks straight at the speaker and he just does all this propaganda bullshit. Canadians have done the hard things, and all this, and all these small minority extremists are not the true Canadians. It's like, well, you realize you've poked the Canadians in the eye with a stick for 2 years, and the most polite people on the fucking planet have responded like this. Maybe it's you. Just putting it out there.
Well, ultimately, what Trudeau is speaking to the CBC talking points, which he has dictated to them. And he doesn't care what goes on inside Parliament or in the House of Commons. He only cares about modifying what the CBC reports to everyone else.
Well, here's a question then. What is so do number 11, then I have a question to follow on because I think
Article 11, Section 2, no one shall be held guilty of any penal offense on account of any act or omission which did not constitute a penal offense under national or international law at the time when it was confirmed, right? So that whole thing is wrong. Okay. Now, Article 12 says no one shall be subject to arbitrary interference with his privacy, family, home, or correspondence. This, amazing. That's what, no one shall be subjected to arbitrary interference with his privacy, family, home, or correspondence, nor to attacks upon his honor or reputation. Everyone has the right to the protection of the law under against such interference or attacks. That's right there on the screen in front of you.
Yeah.
Come on, guys. Seriously, whether you believe that Trudeau's right, whether you believe he's wrong, whether you hate the truckers, whether you love the truckers or whatever else, that is right there in front of you. That is what the law says.
Yeah.
Well, my question is, what is Trudeau's motivation to do all this? And I mean, this is opening up a whole can of worms because, is he mad with power, or is he a puppet for corporation? Why is he still steadfast? He won't apologize for insulting a Jewish woman by calling her a Nazi, basically. This is the level of commitment he's like the best, how to write a good villain. They think they're doing the right thing. Justin's a very good villain because he believes he's trying to save the world.
You could examine this situation from the idea that he brought this on intentionally, okay? Because with the medical evidence coming in at the time that the blockade was going to leave the West Coast, it started in British Columbia. There was a lot of medical evidence coming out that the vaccine didn't work, that you could still get the virus, you could still transmit the virus. Now, the purpose from a medical perspective of a vaccine is to make it so that you do not get a disease. It's not a treatment, it's a prevention. You don't get a polio vaccine and expect to get polio. So clearly, it's not a vaccine anymore. And then they rebrand it as a treatment 2 years after shitting on every other treatment that worked, like hydrochloroquine and ivermectin and the concentrated antibodies that Joe Rogan used. And these are the things that, Dr. Malone brought up on the podcast with Joe Rogan. So all Trudeau had to do, if he was politically savvy and wanted to avoid this, was lift the mandates. And then when the energy surrounding the convoy dissipated, as his intelligence operatives followed them on social media and whatever listening they do beyond that, they could have waited 2 months and then brought the mandates back. It's, part of me thinks that Trudeau deliberately chose this confrontation, and just as it represents a spark that could start a fire in people around the world for pushing back on governments, and I don't mean to be the cynic here, but it could go the other way. Trudeau could be the example that shows Macron, that shows Biden, that shows Germany, that shows all the people connected to this Great Reset, World Economic Forum, Davos crowd agenda to become more authoritarian. So this is a very important point in not just Canadian history, but world history. There's a profound karmic pattern here as well, because after Justin Trudeau leaves office in another 10 years, not knowing what the world is going to be, but let's just say people will know of 2 Canadian prime ministers in the last 100 years, and they will both be Trudeau's. Okay? So if you ask anyone around the world if they know a Canadian prime minister, before Justin Trudeau, they would say his father, Pierre. Pierre also garnered a lot of international attention. They're very good at getting attention, the Trudeaus. And so, but this is what's going on in Canada, and this is why this is so important, and this is why part of me thinks that Trudeau deliberately picked this fight, and he's the lead dog in the husky train of subordinates to whatever the global agenda is in public office at a federal level, in the aligned countries who want to move in this direction that they have been incredibly amorphous about, because I don't know what the Great Reset is. Go ahead, Monty. Sorry.
Yeah, it's just to add to that as well. There's rumblings again. Hillary Clinton may run for 2024, and it's like, this just sounds like fucking sport. It's not politics, where you had Bush 1 and 2, and then you got Clinton, and then it'll be Clinton, and then you got Trudeau and Trudeau. I thought the idea of a democracy, especially the United States, they broke away from the monarchy so you wouldn't have the same fucking family rule over you. But since World War II, you can see just they're trying to do the whole family lineage. Even people bring up when the people that don't like Trump, they have this strong belief that his kids will take over, and it's like, once again, it's all bloodline bullshit. Now, it's not the same as the royals think they're better because God said we should rule. In actual fact, it's just one of their great grandfather killed everyone else with a sword.
Remember the Kennedys.
Yeah, but it's like, 2 of them got taken out. The other one was afraid. Like Ted Kennedy did fuck all. Well, he did drive a car into a lake once, but apart from that, but yeah, the people think of the DNA and everything else like that. But I mean, Robert Kennedy was proving himself. That's why he was shot, because they didn't want another Jack Kennedy in charge. But really, I mean, there's people have even put forward Chelsea Clinton could run for office. It was like, fucking why? I mean, Hillary Clinton, why? She was the first lady. What was apart from being a baby raping lizard wizard? Why else would she be in politics? She hasn't done anything.
I don't think this political game, and this is why I hate politics more than I actually hate religion, has anything to do with merit. Okay.
Yes.
There are politicians all over the world who are dumb to their core. Okay.
Our Prime Minister in Australia has he achieved that rank because he failed. He failed up. In Hollywood, they fail upwards. He followed the same trajectory. You fucked that up, we'll give you a better job. You fucked that up, we'll give you a better job. And he ended up being Prime Minister. It's like, well, what have you done apart from making mistakes all through your career?
It's just so messed up that in just about every country in the world right now, it's a situation where you have the worst of 2 evils. It's always the worst of 2 evils. Okay? Out of 8 billion plus people, you can't find one person with integrity. to run a country. How is this possible? And as for the UN, Robert, can you put that document back up and go to Article 13, please?
Yeah, because the UN, remember, the UN was created.
Country and to return to it.
Yeah, the UN was created to stop wars, and aren't we glad that that happened?
Right, so let's just settle this argument once and for all. Everyone has the right to freedom of movement and residence within the borders of each state. Everyone has the right to leave any country, including his own, and to return to his country.
Well, that's been ignored in the last 2 years, especially here in Australia.
That pretty much ends the argument. Robert, if you could just scroll down to the last article, because this is the most important article. Article 30 is the last article. Everyone can actually just read that themselves. Okay? Nothing in this declaration may be interpreted as implying for any state, group, or person any right to engage in any activity or to perform any act. They didn't say except, okay?
Yeah.
Aimed at the destruction of any of the rights and freedoms set forth therein. This is not an argument that we can, it's not even a discussion. It's not an argument, it's not a discussion. When you're dealing with right and wrong, when you're dealing with the law, how you feel may be this big thing, right? But the law is actually quite narrow. It's a very narrow corridor. And when they tell you any, they mean any, okay? They didn't say except.
Right. The Canadian Charter of Rights also confirms and affirms the same things that's in the human rights declarations, but because it's a virus, they are disregarding the language and letter of the law and the faith of law to allow a virus to change the laws indefinitely, to give them power, because it's a virus under the idea of global health security. Every country is using the same ideology to bypass existing local laws, state laws, federal laws, and international laws.
And people who protect all that would call us extremists, and we don't think there's a virus and nothing should be done. And that's, I guess, that's a straw man from their perspective, because with everything that UN Charter, we can still look after the vulnerable and the pre-ignition. You know, there are different ways of actually dealing. The best way I've explained it over the last year, I've pointed out, can you imagine if the governments approached this pandemic from a health perspective instead of a power perspective? Now, Melissa, you've been just watching the show. I'll stop. From the like, without going too deep into it, like, how could they've done things differently health-wise? Because I know, you dabble in health.
Well, we're seeing the collapse of health systems across all the countries that we're in right now. One of the things I'll backtrack to, though, is don't forget that a lot of us, like right now, you've got sort of an international group of hosts here that are all over the planet. And a lot of people that are on here, and thanks, guys, for being on here, because you're playing a really important part for being on here as well. You're probably hearing stuff that you had no idea was going on in other parts of the world. Let's not forget the bills that were passed at the end of 2020 to shut down and block media coverage, like David being tortured, having to watch Fox News. You've had to actually try and reach out. Fortunately, I have an amazing global network, so I've been able to keep a really good eye on what's going on around the world. But if you didn't have that, you would probably have no idea what the hell's been happening in Canada, and that financial institutions have shut people out of their own bank accounts, and that we're seeing a while ago back in, I think it was in Cuba, the whole internet blackout and everything else is going on there. We're seeing this stuff is actually happening around the world that we're not hearing about. So the fact that we're here as a group and an audience, this is an international audience, is brilliant in itself, because I'll guarantee, I know that I had not seen the photos out of Colombia of the truckers doing what they did. That was bloody brilliant. Thanks for that, Robert. And so I'm sure we're all seeing that stuff. Let me give it a perspective on what would have happened if this, in fact, was dealt with as a health crisis rather than we have an opportunity to overpower everything. At the moment, we're seeing in countries all over, in what we consider to be advanced and privileged countries all over, the health systems are failing dismally. Now, in Australia, we had a health system that was pretty awesome. You didn't pay for anything. It was fantastic. I mean, envy of the world, really, with what we had. Now it is desperate and failing. People are dying left, right, and centre, waiting for an ambulance. They call the ambulance, it doesn't come. And it doesn't come for like 90 minutes or 28 minutes, or people are calling an ambulance desperately, need for aid, and they're not getting it. People are dying. And there'll be no, I mean, we're seeing it at the moment where here in Australia where there's no, you could sue all you like, but there are so many thousands of people now that are dying from diseases, terminal illnesses, not terminal illnesses, but have become terminal illnesses that weren't treated because of these stupid mandates, lockdowns, crap like that. So a lot of diseases weren't discovered in the last 2 years that would have easily been discovered with a simple scan or something, but have not been. And so we're seeing a lot of the people, and even I didn't account for the fact, we're looking at these so-called vaccines that were never vaccines. They, we now know that the bloody things don't stop you catching anything. And that they're causing more issues than they're supposed to protect you from. And so we're seeing that all around the planet as well. Here in Australia, they've just approved an actual vaccine, a vaccine that actually is, as they refer to it, it's old technology. It's a genuine vaccine that has dead viral cells in it, injected into the body recognises it, knows how to treat it, right? Nutshell of what happens in the immune system, but it's called Novavax, and it's just been approved, but you're not allowed to use it as a booster, and you're not allowed to. And no, was in a meeting yesterday with a whole group of doctors in Victoria, massive group of us. Nobody has received a dose of it, even though it's been approved and blah 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 on paper. No one has doses to actually administer to anyone. And these are the ones that people that are called anti-vaxxers were waiting for. They could actually get this prior to virus season and the winter in the Southern Hemisphere if they wanted protection from these viruses. Before you jump on that wagon, just remember that a virus never gets stronger. Viruses evolve, and as they evolve, they become weaker. They evolve for survival. And so whatever strains are coming out and whatever crap we're going to hear through the media about the Omega strain, which I'm sure they're waiting to use Omega, you remember that viruses don't get stronger, they weaken as they evolve. And so this latest strain that they're saying is a COVID virus, which actually it's a SARS strain, but it's not actually part of the COVID series. And if you look up any documentation, the virus looks completely different. The Omicron one looks completely different to anything COVID. It's still a coronavirus, it's still a SARS virus, but so is the common cold is a coronavirus, everyone. All right. So just the coronavirus is not limited to the COVID series of fun. What we're seeing now, though, is the collapse of medical systems and healthcare systems. And we're seeing the exhaustion in those that have been trained. And of course, those poor people were, I was trying not to swear, everyone, sorry about that. I used to be in the military and I swear like that. But the poor people that were the first to be vaccinated with those very primitive vaccines at the very start. Remember, all the healthcare workers around the world in our society copped those. And we're seeing not just the fatigue in them. And there was an enormous protest. Where was that, Mont? Sydney? Sydney, the nurses that stepped out.
Yeah.
That was last week that thousands and thousands of nurses just walked off the job. And the day before, the government tried to, what did they pass? They tried to ban them from protesting and from leaving their job to actually go and protest. And they were going out saying, we can't take this anymore because they're exhausted. They're all getting sick. They're circling and recirculating through the COVID series of viruses because they keep catching it. Because in this country, for some reason, the government thought it was smart that even if a healthcare worker tested positive with COVID, they could continue to work in the hospitals.
And add to that, the mandate is that maybe a third of healthcare workers have been fired because they wouldn't get the vaccine. And so you actually have a way out of this by allowing that, because all of 2020 they were heroes, but now they wouldn't have a vaccine. They're scum. And
well, Monty's actually witnessed firsthand. I bundled him in the car and he had to help me. I've actually had to drive patients myself that were desperately in need of urgent medical care to the hospital myself. Because when I called an ambulance, they said, there's a 90-minute wait. And
it was a 15-minute drive.
What?
Yeah.
So I bundled this near dead patient into my own car, made Monty get in with me because he because he was close by. Mont, need your help. You've got to help me lift this person. And he's like, because Mont ends up going on these adventures. I've had to actually, in my own vehicle, drive people in, and then I've had to pull whatever I can to get that person in through an overcrowded emergency and into the hospital to keep them alive. Now, I'm really lucky that, and I'm sorry to pull this card, but I'm really lucky that I'm white and I can flirt and I can do whatever I need to do, and I don't have an accent, so I can do whatever I can do in this country. I have a lot more influence in that. If I'd driven up and I had dark skin and an accent, there's no way I would have got my patients through all the security gates to get to emergency. And instead, and actually Monty witnessed one of these too. I've actually been able to drive my vehicle down into an ambulance bay. Never happens, right? At a hospital, that absolutely never happens. So I can unload someone closer to the door. And then what was the legal thing? And then no one could help us. None of the paramedics who all wanted to help. It's not their fault, okay? None of the paramedics, someone just called me Barbie, really? It's like, none of the paramedics, none of the doctors, none of the nurses could assist us legally. Monty and I literally had to carry this person from my vehicle to the threshold of the door of the hospital before anyone would help them because of legalities. And so it was fine. I'm sorry. Yes, thank you.
and the fun fact, because we went through the ambulance entrance, I didn't have to go through checkpoint Charlie. So they had an unvaccinated human.
So Mr. Unvaccinated got in.
Yeah, and to help the patient get into it, and there was like 40 people. The waiting room was chockers, and that's the other thing. Like just on whatever, brain work, mouth come online now. From a government perspective, like as a voter, it's like our health system is collapsing. Well, it's 2 years into a pandemic, and didn't this fucking thing start with the whole 2 weeks to flatten the curve so the health system wouldn't fucking collapse?
Yeah. And instead, this long-term effect of all these plays of power have pretty much destroyed healthcare systems the world. I mean, America, and I'm sorry, guys, for you that are there, but America's always been pretty screwed in terms of your healthcare system. But thank you who's saying I'm not a Barbie. I do look a bit like a Barbie doll, but my resume doesn't read like one. Well,
it kind of does.
I'm pretty sure Barbie, of all of her jobs, Barbie never went in the military.
Where's the Navy SEAL Barbie doll? That's would sell.
Right. That's the one I'd be buying.
Right. And then there's the
Barbie.
And then there's the mental health crisis looming in the background now.
Yeah.
That is a disaster upon disaster upon disaster with disasters within disasters.
And on top of that, the index, the increase in domestic violence, the increase in, we're just, oh my God, the mental health crisis.
I mean, I know they were joking in the chat about someone think about the children. It's like, well, we are. That's why we're doing this. And I understand where the comedy's coming from. But what Andrew just mentioned, like the mental health of kids under 10 and teenagers as well, where they're just trying to figure out who they are, just going through puberty in this shit. Self-harm is up 400% or something ridiculous here in Australia.
That's like 490, I think.
And the Victorian government waited 18 months and then said, "Oh, we'll do something about their mental health issues." It's like you've kept this. Melbourne has the longest lockdown of any city in the world, and then after it's like, "Oh, there's people complaining about mental health. Oh, we'll give the illusion we're doing something about it," and it's. Yeah, this is going to be an Australian reference. It's like Jeff Kennett when he got voted out as premier and then went to Beyond Blue, which is an anti-suicidal thing. It's like, well, you caused most of it in Victoria. Yeah, don't worry. Anyone outside of Victoria from the 90s, you have no idea what I just said. Local reference.
But look, at the moment, I have my own kids and I have 9-year-old twins. And at the moment, they have to wear a mask in school. And the other day, my kids are awesome kids. They're resilient. Look, I'm extremely biased, but they are actually, I really lucked out. They're really good people, my kids.
I've met them. Yes, they are.
But a few days ago, one of my 9-year-olds, just tears started running down her face. And she just said, "I can't keep wearing a mask. I can't keep doing this, Mum." And she knows, you shouldn't have to, baby. There's no reason you have to. This is absolutely screwed up. And I said, wing it and see how you go. She kept the mask off all day at school. No teacher, no one principal, no one told her to put it back on. Everyone here agrees that none of the kids should be wearing bloody masks. It's ridiculous.
What's the health issues?
So the same week, the state premier announces that any parent of a school child has to have a third vaccine, a booster, to enter the schoolyard at all to pick up their own kids.
Yep.
Whoa.
So today in New York City, there was a massive walkout of students in schools against the mask mandates, and they've lifted the mask mandates because of the mass walkout of students.
Yeah, what are the negative health aspects of wearing a mask for 8 hours a day?
The mental health is worse than the physical issues.
Yes. That was going to be my follow-up question. But people have I only learned this from MASH, but it's mainly true. You know, when you wear those surgical masks, it's only probably for an hour or so, and you can't touch the fucking thing. Once you touch it, you have to remove it because it's been
contaminated.
And so, people are still wearing the same cloth mask for 8 weeks in a row without washing it. So, the body gets rid of crap by breathing out, because that's how, viruses if it's airborne, that's how it does. The body's like, no, get that out. And if you're holding it in a mask and you don't look after it, there's mold and I think even, I have no idea why I'm saying this. Even Dr. Fauci pointed out it's not the Spanish flu. Can't call it Spanish flu because that's racist. And it also started in fucking Nebraska. But that flu in 1919 that stopped the actual war. It wasn't like, oh, we're running out of bullets. It's like, no, everyone's fucking dying. But a third of them were because everyone wore masks all the time. And so they got infected that way. It wasn't the virus; it was the actual wearing of the
Monty,
mask.
to be quite honest with you, and that's a very good point you just made. A mask is only as good as the person wearing it, right? So you had to be conscientious. So, as an example, if you took your mask off and put it down on the kitchen table, good luck, my brother. Because when you put it up, you give it clear access to your mouth, right? So a mask is only as good as the common sense that you have. But Andrew also made a very important point. The psychological effect of injecting fear, global fear. And it's not just fear of dying, but fear of the authorities coming after you. And in Canada, fear is running really high. Everybody has just been frightened for how many years? The effects of that will be very long lasting. And I think what Andrew said a little earlier on is also important, because, and what the individual in the chat said is very important, because they're not trying to make us afraid. They're trying to make our children adapt to totalitarianism.
Yeah.
Because your children will learn to obey and be afraid.
Yeah, I saw a video about a year ago. It's cute and horrifying at the same time. It was a toddler going up and tapping everything and washing their hands, like for the sanitizer. Yeah, it's like, it's cute, but then you actually just, a nanosecond later, that's horrifying because that's all she knows. There are kids that have only seen masks. You need the facial recognition, which I find funny. Like the anti-maskers, you're following, you're capitulating and everything else like that. It's like, so you want facial recognition to find out who you are? Like that's the only bonus of wearing a mask at the moment. It's the whole facial recognition thing's fucked. But apart from that, it's
no, it's crazy stuff. And here's the thing. There was a standard for masks when this first started, was N95, correct? And then there was a shortage, and then they made up for the shortage of masks. And it has, people have been wearing masks ever since. And they got into the beauty mask and the fashion masks, right? Which are not N95 and so on. There are so many incongruencies in all of these. Oh, well, there is that as well. I don't think it's protected from anything.
Well, David, here's a question for you. Here's a question for you, David. If it's a deadly plague disease virus that's going to wipe out humanity and we have to wear masks, why aren't there bio bins for masks everywhere?
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, good point.
Because they didn't put it into the budget of when they were going to fear everyone. That's why.
Yeah, well,
The
obviously,
same thing with the N95 masks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because they would have added it to the budget, people would have been going, where's the money going?
No,
Well,
I have
yeah.
another question to ask where this is concerned. Forget about the law, forget about all of that stuff. Let's just talk some pure common sense here. If you are going to make it mandatory for me to put anything into my body, it could be an apple. Why is it that I can't sue you if anything goes wrong? Look, I don't like this. Let's try some common sense here. Why do these pharmaceutical companies have liability protection? Why do they have liability protection? I should be able to sue you if it is that you're insisting that I put something in my mouth. So basically, you're telling it's like Socrates and the hemlock. Drink this.
Yeah.
Right?
Most of the primary vaccine manufacturers have never made a vaccine before. Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, there's like most of the big ones have never made a vaccine before. They've just jumped on the bandwagon.
Melissa, first of all, who the hell trusts the pharmaceutical company?
Why
in
would
2021?
you?
Who trusts pharmaceutical companies?
Well, I mean, Johnson and Johnson,
governments trust
so much problems.
Right. Governments trust them.
Yeah, because remember, Johnson and Johnson made baby powder, which gave kids cancer.
Oh, God damn it!
But right. Yeah, it's the government, and that's kind of where it goes back to: is Trudeau doing this by himself, or is he a puppet master? Because like even here in Australia now, it'll be different for every country. Apparently, the federal government has bought 200 million doses of vaccines. And like Trudeau bought as many, like it's like 19 shots per person. Like, yeah, where the fuck is this economic? Because it doesn't sound like fucking health. Like, how do you know that I'll take 19 jabs to get to blah blah blah? And is this the first time?
There's an expiry date on those too. Well, it's not like they can buy 19 million and stash them somewhere.
Well, you know how delicate a viral vaccine medication is. You know how delicate that is. If the temperature drops, it's no longer valid.
Yeah, because they killed the virus.
If the temperature drops, it's no longer valid. But I return to my point, guys. Please answer me on this. Why is it that I can't sue the manufacturers of vaccines if something goes wrong? Is it because they're afraid of facing 8 billion lawsuits?
Yeah, it's a big club, and you're not in it.
Question, David. I remember it was horrific that came out that they would not be liable for these vaccines. Mm-hmm. But not liable by who? Who actually, like, which court passed it? Is that an international coverage of liability?
No, that's the FDA in the United States gave them a complete indemnity without a vote from Congress.
So they've actually pulled that through every country as vaccines invented them, have they?
So basically, the way it works is this way. Depending on where you're headquartered, okay? Because the people in Nigeria years ago, and I need to keep bringing this case up over and over again, Pfizer started producing a drug called Trovan. It was a meningitis drug. Mm-hmm. They couldn't get that passed by the FDA because it costs a lot of money to get a drug passed by the FDA, specifically around $50 million, okay? And so they tested it in Africa. Seriously, that actually happened with a bunch of families, and they were horrifying side effects, okay? Children went blind and so on. Mm-hmm. The families got together and they sued Pfizer. I'm not talking off the top of my head here. This is a case that I had to study in school, okay? Pfizer settled for $70 million. Do you know what $70 million is to Pfizer? That's like
drop in the bucket.
Nothing.
It's a drop in the bucket, right? So in the United States, what they did for these drug companies is that a lot of the laws allow for caps of how much you can sue them for. Okay, I believe the European Union also has caps for how much you can sue them. You can't sue them ad infinitum. Okay, so there is nothing fair about that. And here's the thing, this is when you're talking to people who have one opinion or another opinion or whatever else, They have no idea of what the actual facts are. So you're telling me that I must trust a company that did that? No, I'm not going to trust you. Okay? No, I'm not going to trust you. This is a real case. They lost the case. Pfizer lost and settled, right?
Was that the biggest? Because like there was a kind of meme going around 6 months ago. Just Google the highest payout for criminal activity or something like that, and basically it was Pfizer paying the highest level of money, and it was in the billions.
Yeah.
Pfizer has made several mistakes. Moderna has made some mistakes, but Pfizer has done some. I'm going to say it right live on. Like that case, you guys, you don't take David's word for it. Please go read. And this is the problem with a lot of people. Andrew, we had this discussion earlier on, right? They have dumbed down the public to such a level. They're on Facebook as opposed to checking for their own health.
Right.
Yeah, remember when Facebook, you could ask for a second?
They're looking at shit on Facebook instead of checking for their own health. So they will merrily be on Facebook while they are taking a shot of Pfizer and not researching the company that is delivering the shot to them. Seriously?
Remember the heady days of 2019, December 2019, where you could actually ask another doctor for a second opinion? You know, notice that second opinion thing's disappeared.
Look at that shit. Look like that. Yeah, just so that the audience is clear, healthcare-related offenses, that figure there is not millions. That would be billions.
And why isn't the Charter of Human Rights at the international level going after any of the banks? Because there is no enforcement.
Mm.
Yeah.
Unless everyone stands up.
How much of that money actually made it to the people and wasn't eaten by the lawyers and the bureaucracies?
Yeah.
None of it. Virtually none of it made it to the people.
Read.
Yeah. What was that?
Research properly.
Sorry, I'm not good at symbols. What was that?
It's just read stuff. Actually talk to people. Don't watch your bloody televisions.
Yeah, well, I've had like family members.
The internet is right there. I don't understand this stuff.
Well, that's the thing, because there's a perception of like, now you can have a YouTube degree if you look at fringe and say my channel's only got 600 people. That's true, but the thing is, YouTube in a way is not that bad because it's got Stanford, Harvard, Oxford. If you find actual and also using YouTube, it's a starting point, not an end point. Because like if you see a 5-minute video on Oxford has found this, blah 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 blah, I recommend you actually go to the scientific paper and read the paper. It's a starting point, not an end point.
With that being said, it's a starting point, not an end point. So many people will not even start because the level of disinformation has reached such high levels of weaponization, no one knows where to start with first.
And what to believe.
Or what to believe, right.
Yeah.
You try and do a radio show on a conspiracy theory radio network. I don't give a fuck anymore. Like there's nanoparticulates in the viruses. Show me. Don't tell me. Show me. But that graphite. It's cheaper to put cocaine in every fucking vial than it is to put that. You know how expensive that graphite is.
Here's the thing, guys. Go ahead, Monty.
I was just going to say, if there are a small group of people who want to kill and control humanity, we could come up with better ways than the ways that has been put forward. Yeah. There are so much better ways, even just like through mind control and Mockingbird, that people give the Team Dark too much power. They're idiots.
Yes.
High-functioning idiots.
In terms of your health, let me hand you all a little bit of power back. Your body has always healed itself. Yeah, you might have gone to doctors, you might have had chemotherapy, you might have had antibiotics, whatever tool they used, but your body always works to bring itself back to balance. Your body is the highest biotech on this goddamn planet.
That's right.
And so when someone said to me that the Novavax vaccine, that's an actual vaccine, is old technology, my response was, I'm walking around in a human body, the oldest biotech on this planet and still the highest. I'm happy to go old.
I want to
go
talk
old.
to I want to talk to the point that Melissa, you made and Andrew made. When you go back and there's misinformation everywhere, when everybody's just talking shit, why don't you go by what actually happened, right? As opposed to what you've been told.
Because David, what actually happened isn't recorded accurately. It's been weaponized to what has happened and what hasn't happened and been disinformed, reinformed. So what had happened, you don't even know where to start to find out what has happened.
Yeah, but
as I said,
Andrew,
what
happened to you, what has happened to you is not subject to misinformation. So if you are Canadian and you are in Canada right now, okay, ask yourself what has happened to you. Okay, forget about the politics, forget about Trudeau, forget about the House of Commons, forget about everything else. Ask yourself what has happened to you. What is your life like? You're feeling pretty good right now? You're okay right now? You feel good about where you are? Right? Are you enjoying life right now?
Yeah.
That's not subject to misinformation. That's how
David, in this world, people are externalized and not internalized. And what you're talking about is high level philosophy, which unfortunately so many of the mass people have no idea what is an internal thought and an internal concept. It's totally foreign to them as a perspective of self-learning.
You share the idea that you're the center of your universe and you create your reality. And you've basically pointed out that they're failing at it and they get angry at you, or they don't meet that. They think they believe their outside is controlling them. There's interaction, but you are the center of your universe. You can change your frequency.
Justin in the chat said there's no drive-through for that. Okay? Right. There's no drive-through to the self. Okay, that's the challenge of the spiritual work. No matter what denomination it is, the self-work is the self-work, which is the hardest thing as a teacher to teach anyone.
It's an inside job.
Yes.
It's an inside job. Nice one.
That's right.
It's like these people, like, you know, there's a grand awakening. It's like, to the corruption in the political. Because we hang out with Andrew, so I keep thinking you're only 1% into your awakening. You have so much more to learn, Grasshopper. And people, there's going to be a solar flash, and all humanity will evolve. And like, no, that run fucking no. You have to do the inner work yourself. And because the way there's manipulation of time, it may give the impression that everyone steps into 5D. If you can use that label at the same time. But in this timeline, you'll see people slowly disappearing. You know what I mean? They're going into a different version of time. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I said it's only a label, Sean. Don't make me come over there.
What about 4.5D or 4.3D or 3.5D or 3.9D? People forget that there's all these increments in between, all these different dimensions of perspective. Yeah. And right now we're stuck in the misinformation, weaponized information, which is 3.2D.
Oh, Andrew, I must say sometimes I feel like, going back to 2D sounds very promising at the moment.
Yeah, it would simplify everything, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's like fucking, I just want to be flat, man. I just want to go to be a flat man, and you work out your shit, and then I'll come back when you've worked it all out.
So I want to point out another thing. The American media is now talking about false flags, nuclear weapons. That's the realm of Alex Jones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The modern media is right now Alex is taking a page direct from Alex Jones.
Yeah. And I shared Alex Jones to people about Alex Jones, where like one of our sitting members in federal parliament actually went on InfoWars. And he got dumped on by everyone. He's a conspiracy theorist. He's an alt-right. Why are you going on there? And as I've said to, I think everyone on the panel before, Alex Jones' strike rate is 97% correct most of the time. He's like, I don't know anyone else that has that strike rate in the mainstream media. They're probably 50%. but they ignore him because they don't like the ideas. And now because let's bring in the Joe Rogan effect, he's getting 11 million views per episode, and CNN can get 3 million? He's more popular than the legacy media. And so
added together, all of them added together.
Yeah. And so it kind of makes sense as they're going to start delving into that stuff because it's most likely true, as well as like, well, this works because you can see the success of David Icke, Alex Jones, and Joe Rogan. Did you see there was in the US an actual journalist
the status of Joe Rogan right now?
Apparently it came out. Apparently it's been leaked his contract. He didn't get 100 million. He got 200 million. And of course, all the lefties are freaking out. But there was a press conference.
The Joe Rogan thing was brilliant. The whole Spotify Joe Rogan thing, with all the precious holier than thou, authors and bloody presenters and podcasters that are all like debunking and saying, I'm withdrawing my material from Spotify, blah, blah, blah. It was bloody brilliant. It was brilliant because it brought so many people who probably had never heard of Joe Rogan to look at, whether you like him or not, the guy talks information. He doesn't talk bias. And so he's it certainly brought a much broader audience to that level of information. And so it was...
And Neil Young is back on Spotify. You can listen to Neil Young on Spotify now.
And so is Brené Brown, and so is everyone else that cracked it and carried on like a pack of...
you can swear, Melissa.
Thank you. So with that was that same thing about Joe Rogan's contract. So something else that came out. This is the first time Spotify is net positive in earnings, and it's because Joe Rogan has made them net positive in earnings instead of them losing money every year.
That's right.
Yeah, you also need to remember Spotify sucks because they don't pay the fucking musicians.
Spotify sucks big time, but damn, how clever was that business-wise? But more importantly, in terms of what's happening to us on the planet right now, the fact
information
that someone speaking truth has got a much broader megaphone now is not a bad thing.
Right. Spotify is legal Napster. Is Napster legalized? That's what Spotify is.
The thing about it is that this was so unfair. You can imagine you're on a platform with someone else and you decided, oh, guess what? I want that person on the platform. This cancel culture thing makes my head hurt. Yeah. Like what kind of, how dysfunctional and sick do you have to be to decide, I don't want him to speak on this platform, get him off.
And it gets worse.
How old are you?
Yeah, it gets worse because they will go create your own platform like yourself. You're creating your own platform, but they'll come after you because they don't like the idea. Even if you create your own, was it Parler? Whatever, that one got canned. There's it's a whole thing about nearly 12 million subscribers. I've seen on Twitter a lot of people say, I had no idea who Joe Rogan is, and they tried to cancel him, so I went to look. Oh, he's awesome. And it's a great marketing tool. Like Joe's sitting there going, well, I'm doing better. But the whole thing about get him off YouTube, like Stephen Crowder, get him off YouTube. Alex Jones is bigger now than he was on those platforms. And the next step from those woke idiots is to try and take down your own platforms because you're still there sharing that information and they think they're right and we're wrong.
Yeah. About the whole woke thing and the cancel culture thing, that has hijacked the spiritual communities as well. I have said this already. I have seen people who are into spirituality putting a bunch of shit on their profiles on social media, right?
Medical term.
How are you? Yes, medical term, right? Right. How are y'all doing this? Like y'all are actually, this cancel culture and woke culture thing comes with the spirit of vengeance. Stop that shit. Come on.
Unfortunately, a lot of it is driven by artificial bots who are trying to target people through the analytics of social media to make them angry. Facebook is literally designed that way to make
you remember that discussion we had earlier on this morning when I have been monitoring Facebook, guys. I want to give you some information and I hope this streams to Facebook so that they could take this down. let me show you what
Not the best
is happening
business
here,
idea.
right? If you are inside Facebook, a lot of people don't know that there's such a thing called a Facebook browser, okay? And the reason why I'm saying this is because I've been experimenting with censorship and getting around it, you know, because I'm isolated and I'm in my little ice kingdom, right? I am, so I have time to plot and plan and stuff like that. And Andrew knows what I've been doing. So I've been experimenting with censorship and so on. Let me tell you how nasty Facebook is right now, okay? I'm going to out them right now, right? If you are inside Facebook, and you post a link to Facebook, right? The individual who clicks your link, the link is outside Facebook, right? So you're moving outside Facebook. You guys can try this out right now on your profiles right now. Post anything to Facebook with an external link and click it, whether it be in the messages or whether it be on the home page. When you click it, you'll notice that there's a string of code that's after the link that you posted. That string of code is Facebook following you around the place. Okay?
Yeah.
Disgusting. So if I leave your platform, leave me alone. Leave me alone. And what they are using that tracking for is to make sure that wherever you go, here's another thing that you should know. So as you guys know, I'm building the UCM media. I put the link on Facebook. Okay? Facebook realizes that it's a fallback URL that I am setting up. So the strategy that I'm using is, I know Facebook is probably going to take down shit that I put up, okay? For whatever reason, right? So I found a way around it. It's called a fallback URL. So if I put stuff up on social media and I think that Facebook is going to take it down, there's a link that allows people to go and find that same information outside of Facebook, okay? So Facebook looks at the link, sees where it's going. The bots look at the link, sees where it's going, and then they put a sort of intermediary thing that says, you're about to leave Facebook, and the link doesn't appear to be trusted, right? We don't recommend you following this link. This is a real stuff. And by the way, the only reason why you should do that is if legally, based on the laws, is if that link is not HTTPS, okay? So for those of you who don't know what that is, that's the extension before the browser that says Hypertext Transfer Protocol. So the S means secured. So my links are secured, but Facebook says, we don't recommend you following this link. Like, can you imagine that people do that shit? Like, who sits down in their offices and thinks of shit like this to screw people over? Like, who sits down and thinks of that?
DARPA does that because DARPA is what originally funded Facebook to be weaponized against users to keep them in the addicted places and the addicted scrolling situation. That ever scrolling thing that keeps going up, that was designed to do what? Keep you on the platform.
Yeah, but back in the day, back when we had Microsoft 98 and so on, that was considered giving somebody a virus. That was considered a Trojan.
Right. That was a Trojan. Yeah, literally.
So how is it not a Trojan when Facebook does it?
Because it's got the Facebook name.
Yeah. And I mean, Facebook has helped the Alphabet agency so much now. Instead of 3 months of research, they can actually get everything on your file in 30 minutes. Like you consolidated all your information of who you are on one page. But the thing is, as a hermit, like this social media is a godsend because my cat doesn't really have really good conversations with me. She's usually just hungry or got to flee. So, but it's a good idea. I mean, they intentionally made the notification, the number that's red. So, and I can't remember the psychology of it, but by having red, you're drawn to it. I just do it so I've got a clean thing. So like I've got 17 notifications, so I'll just look at it, get it out of the way. But people get addicted. They put up a post and then they wait for interaction, and it's highly addictive, and it's the element of brainwashing, and like That's why they're pushing for that whole meta where, you'll be in VR. Have you noticed humanity wants to go outside occasionally? That's not picking up on it. You'll own nothing and you'll love it. Fuck no.
So we only got about 15 minutes left in the show, and I want to bring a chance to put some positive energy out there. I don't want to give everyone an individual chance to bring up something positive that you can look forward to or help defeat some of the things that are going on out there. So, Monty, why don't you start? Be it comedy. What is it that you've got positive for people out there?
Stop laughing. How dare you, madam? Oh, that's look at the little cat. Yeah, the goddess is being silly. Let's see. Well, I recently rewatched Ted Lasso. If anyone knows that TV show, it's on Apple TV, and it's just it deals with a lot of things, but it's comedic. There's optimism in it. It's about an American. That's it. I've just got my new ringtone. It's basically an American goes over to England to coach a soccer team, and comedy ensues. But it made me get moved, like, almost crying from joy, just the way the story unfolds. There's hardly any woke stuff in it. Like, they do not tackle, but they do bring up occasionally, like, say, racism, because you've got Nigerians on the thing, but it's done well. And I can't find. Yeah, it's done really intelligently.
It's a really good ride.
Yeah. And so you've watched a couple of episodes?
Yeah, it's because you told me to. So yeah, I do listen.
Yeah. Excellent. Send me your bank account. But you can see why it's just there is that optimism, and I'm glad you watched it because no one else is watching. I don't need to talk to people about it. So there's that element. There are TV shows, like people say, oh, we don't like movies nowadays. They're full of woke ideology and everything else like that. Well, you do know there's 100 years of films that you can watch.
Yeah, it's good old one.
Watch Duck Soup. You'll laugh and then realize this is made in 1934.
Or Monty Python, and realize that society hasn't changed at all in decades.
Yeah, that's funny and sad at the same time.
Political stature is still current.
Yeah, yeah.
So, Melissa, what positive do you have for people out there?
Look, we're all being driven by something. We're all being bullied with the excuse of a virus, and in terms of your health, and that they're taking care of you. Look, number one, the most positive thing I want you guys to remember is that you have enormous power in your own health and your own presence, and that's never changed. The only thing that's changed is the crap that you've let into your mind from whatever media that let that in. But you hold enormous power, so much more than you think, in your health. Your body has always found balance in itself. Yeah, other people help you. You can come to me, I help you. You can go to anyone else, any other specialist that might actually offer some sort of tool, from therapeutic massage to chemotherapy to anything in between. But ultimately, all of those tools just bring your system back to balance enough that it can then correct itself. That's something that's always been in your power. There are basic things that have always been in place to help your system do that. So just, definitely do things that, your grandmother told you to do. Wash your hands, bit of basic personal hygiene never hurts. Something that I've always done is, if I had a virus, and Monty's known me for a long time, he's seen me do this. If I have a virus and I'm going to see patients, I wear a face mask. And I used to look like a freak show. Up until 2 years ago, people thought I was a nutcase because I was wearing a mask. Oh, doesn't she think she's special? I wore a mask because I know that if I have something, I don't want to pass it on. That's what the freaking mask does. That's what the surgeons did in MASH, right? They wore a mask so they didn't contaminate the site. And so that's how a mask actually works. But other than if you aren't unwell and you don't have anything that might be an airborne contagion, then you don't really need to wear a mask, all right? But you hold so much more power in what you know. And Monty alluded to it earlier in the show where he talked about lifting your vibration. That's exactly what you need to do. And lifting your vibrations, you don't have to go down the woo-woo. And as David said, there's been, was it David? Sorry. Yeah, it was David talking about some of the crap that's coming out from spiritual people trying to cash in on this environment. Let me tell you right now, there's no one else. Everyone can tell you they can cure you. If someone uses the words cure and they're a spiritual healer of some sort, run. Don't give me a credit card, all right? And I say that as someone that works in a massive crossover between science and mysticism. I work in a big crossover between the science and the spiritual and all that goes beyond that through multidimensionalism. But with the crap that's going on out there, that's right, heal. You can look up my site. You'll see that I'm a healer and I'm a bloody good one, frankly. But there's my whole advertising pitch. There you go.
Well, you do have the scoreboard for it. How do you back that up? Well, all these fucking healthy people, for starters.
Yeah, look, you want me to back it up, go to the website and dig out my research that's been internationally published in scientific journals all over the world. What I do works. So, okay, go and look it up. We don't, I've worked as hard as I can to find an empirical equation for something that works in quantum communication. So go and have a look at it. But what I want you to know is that you're more powerful in this than you may be believing. You don't need these gene therapy so-called vaccines to convince your system. Like, honestly, I've never been a huge fan of what they've done with this cellular mRNA intrusion. But the other side of that is, and we're seeing this more and more in clients, patients, everyone that we're dealing with, you can accelerate that vibration. I'm pretty sure Andrew would back this up. You can accelerate your vibration to the point that the cell can actually go back to its original blueprint and actually go back and reboot. So you can.
That's the nature. That's the nature of healing, of what you're talking about. Rebooting the mitochondrial power plants to their original thing before the programs dumb them down.
That's right.
Factory settings. Awesome.
Yeah. But look, I want to rant on because I want you guys to know you're so much better in what you've been told. You're so much more powerful than you believe. And in your health, and if you've got your health, you've got your life in check. If you're so much more powerful across the board in yourself. And to quote a Pixar film, yeah, I've got kids, I'm sorry. But to quote A Bug's Life, if one ant stands up, then they might all stand up. And that's, as Andrew mentioned earlier, that's where the power lies. If you stand up alongside everyone else standing up, that's what they're scared of. That's where it lives on this planet, in this realm, in this current,
and to back that up, why do you think they're working so hard to go into the information war by bombarding you with information and creating a narrative that they want instead of actually you controlling your own narrative? Because even in
terrifying for children.
Yeah,
exactly. Hold on one second. We're going low on time. Bruce, what positive do you want to bring to the end of the show here?
Okay, so the time we're living in now is one in which there's outer chaos, but if you can feel it, if you can get the stillness and feel it, there's a tremendous grace present too. This is actually a ridiculously good time to start a new enterprise. To do something that maybe you were afraid of doing in the past. I've had tremendous good fortune with every little business I've started up here. They take a while to get developed, like the a.w.a, and we're getting the place fixed up now for tourism. And for those of you who don't know my backstory, I left Canada in 2014, and I built an earth bag house way in the rainforest. I live with Quebecar natives, and from this remote location, I'm able to telecommute and work. I'm able to start businesses here. With the system collapsing, engage your own creativity and dream a new life. And don't be afraid, because there's something there to meet you halfway, specifically if you have the courage in this moment.
Find your passion.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
David, what positive do you want to leave for the audience?
Well, the pandemic has been wonderful for me, and it could be wonderful for you as well. I got my little skull, like in Shakespearean times, and I sat down and I created a media station out of just the inspiration. So here's what I have to say that's positive. The good news is that people are coming together. Okay, that's the good news. The good news is that there's now a stark staring difference between sanity and insanity. Okay? And you can decide whether you're going to be on one side of the fence or the other side of the fence. It really doesn't matter. But let's look at the truckers' protest, for instance. You're hearing all the bad things and the breaking of the law and the government and so on. What you guys are not seeing is what's on the ground here. These guys passed through my province. Okay? Everybody is feeding those guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They're not feeding those guys because they're militants or whatever else. They're feeding those guys because something about that protest has brought out something inside people, right? Where they're saying, oh, I can actually be a decent human being. I want to tell you guys a story. I'll make it short. The Hutterites, who are the equivalent of Quakers in the US, these guys don't mix with anyone. They don't deal with anyone. These guys put up a kitchen for the truckers. The cops stopped the truckers from going to that kitchen to get fed. The Hutterites took up the entire kitchen and brought it to the next truck stop. That actually happened.
And that was
That is
250 Ks, wasn't it?
That is unprecedented in Canadian history. So just from the inspiration for people like me and other people who are coming together with and collaborating with people and trying to promote each other. And then you have things like this happening in Canada, which is unprecedented. The goodwill towards these truckers is unprecedented. So you could see all the shit and say that's shit, but the positive things that are happening is that all this shit is actually stirring something in people to actually come back to, oh, we're actually supposed to be friends at the end of it all. So, guys.
Well, they've actually got bouncy castles there. I mean, if that's not a threat to society.
Yes, all the little terrorist kids and racist kids that were at all the different rallies. Now, I want to finish with what I have to say that's positive right now. Humanity is at a breaking point where the globalist agenda will either break you or make you stronger. If you let it break you, you will be letting them win. How is that positive? This is where you got to put on the big boy pants or the big girl pants. This is where you got to have your suck it up buttercup moment. No matter how hard life has been to you, life will get harder if you don't decide to stand up in your own self-belief. This is the time to learn self-healing, self-nurturing, and self-mastery. None of those things are mystical. They all simply require commitment and discipline. None of those things are mystical either. You summon it through your own willpower, and that willpower to be sovereign. I have been teaching sovereignty since day one, along with the Galactic History perspective of how the different societies throughout history have discovered sovereignty or lost sovereignty. We're at a point where each individual human being must explore sovereignty in their own way. Whether you're in any community, no matter what it is, if you're going to choose to be sovereign, it starts in the self. It starts by learning to love yourself and forgive yourself for what has ever happened to you or what might happen to you. Forgiveness is also not a mystical skill. It is something that is earned and learned. You wake up each morning and forgive yourself of what's happened the day before. So today is a clean slate. And with each day that you have tabula rasa, the clean slate in the Roman terminology, you can do anything with your willpower. Direct it to a new business, direct it to healing your traumas, direct it to helping friends and family get out of their despair, and help everyone construct a new stairway out of despair and into common humanity, accepting each and every one of themselves as an individual sovereign being with their own individual choices, their own individual religious or political perspectives that are not judged with a force of destruction.
Beautiful.
So
Okay?
you're saying it's me.
It's always been you.
Yeah. Inside
And
job.
the aliens are not going to come down and help you. The
No.
Great Reset will not help you. The reset of the currency. There is no one that can help you but you. If you are waiting for some global change to change your perspective, you have already lost sovereignty. Since December 21st, 2012, I have said nothing is going to happen tomorrow. Is anything happening today? Right now? Are people out in the same scale and size as the 1960s and 70s marching in the streets? No. We have 350 truckers in Ottawa and another 700 truckers spread throughout Canada who shut down Canada. We're talking 1,100 truckers shut down an entire country. That's how much individual power can be had down. No matter how strong the anti situations are going on with the different governments and the listening stuff, you can still whisper to your neighbor, just put your cell phone in a plastic bag and they can't hear you anymore. Okay? The good old-fashioned whisper campaign can still work. We have an unlimited amount of power if we decide to put our brains to it.
Beautiful.
I want to give everyone a chance to have a last word and say where they are and how they could get a hold of. Melissa, you want to have your last word and then tell people how to get a hold of you?
Look, guys, do the best you can. So glad you joined us all today. And thanks for being part of this community, because we need this international community. And everyone does. This is part of the Whisper campaign. It is. If you need to find me, you can go to the website, qbihealing.com or melissahockingHughes.com. We'll take you there too. And you can find me through all that sort of stuff. But thanks for having me today, guys, too. I really
You're welcome. And I look forward to you coming back anytime and sitting with us. Monty, you want to give a way for people to get a hold of you and last words?
Lacey, last words. If you're feeling down, watch some comedy. Have a laugh. And you are greater than, see, this part I'm talking to myself. You are greater than who you think you are. And it is actually all about the now. You know, you can discover your galactic history. It's like, yeah, that's nice, but who are you right now in this moment of now? And don't let the bastards keep you down. Because don't give away your power. Don't consent. Find it in yourself and become the best you that you can be. And so that way you don't have to judge how other people are going. You can still observe. That's another way. Don't ignore the global narrative. Observe the global narrative. The best way of winning a spiritual war is to get off the field and watch it. Recently, it's getting boring, and I went to the concession stand. But you get to see what I'm saying. Now, on social media, I'm basically Monty Dean. On Twitter at Real Monty Dean. Everything else is Wafer Thin Entertainment. I'm on Odyssey, Rumble, BitChute, YouTube, and Anchor FM. I'm actually on Spotify, but I wasn't given $1 million. I'm also on Instagram if you want to follow my memes, because that's how I'm taking down the tyrannical structure of planet Earth. It's one meme at a time.
Great. David, Bruce, do you want to give a way for people to get a hold of you and last words?
Yeah, last word. Allow yourself to be blessed, and you'll see your life as the blessing it's always been. Just don't let this fear, chaos, and panic into you. And I assure you, the moment you get your attention off of it, you'll start to see something you didn't see before. It's very positive. I wish, as a writer, I could lay more words to it, but all I can call it is a kind of grace that's in the air. It's almost like you're catching the energy of what's to come in the future, but you get it now in the present. And for contacting me or for supporting me, you can just buy a book. If you haven't bought The Galactic Historian yet, best book I will ever write in my life, with my co-author and the brains behind the book, Andrew, Galactic Historian, The World According to Andrew Bartzis. And if you're so inclined, go and get another book. Pick up Stardust Ranch. My co-writer on that book is having a bit of a health issue right now, so maybe some positive energy towards him.
That does come in an audio book as well.
Just be well and try to love everything around you, your animals, your pets, and remember, only a fool names a cat.
Well,
yes. David, you want to give us last words and the way for people to get a hold of you?
Guys, to end this on a positive note, thank you guys for coming out. You guys need to stay informed. You guys need to stop all the hate that's happening. And you guys can actually do that by starting with yourself, not with your neighbor or whatever else, but you can start with yourself. That is definitely the way to go. And ride this wave of goodwill. Don't let it despair, because despair is where defeat happens for a lot of people, not just spiritual people. For myself, I am with the UCM network. So what we are doing, we have an app. You guys can download it. Please download our apps, because then you will have access to the shows that we put out and a lot of other resources that we put inside there for you guys, including quizzes, assessments, so that you guys can actually test yourselves. Yeah, you guys can, not medically, I mean psychologically, and otherwise. And you can check us out at UCM, universalcitizen.net. And you can contact me at info@universalcitizentv.net.com. Just one thing, guys. We're planning to have like an after party after one of these shows. So I'm putting out a call to action. If you have a musical instrument that's collecting dust at home, email me at info@universalcitizentv.com. We're going to put together a jam session at some point in time, because there's too much grave shit in the spiritual communities. So we're putting on an impromptu jam session. Email me, whether you're a rap artist or whether you're just a DJ or whether you have rattles, or even if you have your baby rattle. Okay, reach out and we're going to put this together and we're going to have some fun. Let's up with the fun.
We're going to do an after hours party that goes late into the night. All right, everybody, you know who I am. You can get a hold of me at andrewbartzis.com. Check out Galactic Historian on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and et cetera, et cetera. Also, I have a book that is out. Galactic Historian, A Core World According to Andrew Bartzis, co-wrote with Bruce MacDonald. You can go to Amazon.com to get that. Send us some love. Send us your wisdom. Send us your capacity to expand. And we will give you more shows that help you expand backwards and upwards. All right, everybody, everyone that's on the panel, stick around a second. Don't just run away. We're going to have a little after meeting after the show. But everyone, thank you so much for joining, and we'll be back next Thursday with another call-in show. Thank you, everyone. All right, Robert, take us away.
Each different bubble of reality is true.
A galactic historian is a person that looks at all the lines of dramatic karma.
Nudge, nudge. It's the holy grail.
Improvise. Mysterious.
It's counter psychic intelligence.
Why is DNA farming of this star cluster so important?
Because we do manifest our reality. We do create our reality.
Hello, let's create, let's co-create, and let's change this world with love. No matter if you're from Alpha Centauri or Earth, we all began with the same birthing process. We live in a limited point of view. Living the mystical life daily is about striving for the unlimited point of view. Each day, each human being gets an infinite amount of choices. Living the mystical life daily is about facing obstacles and challenges. The level of awareness that you are working at means you have a responsibility to be equal with it. How does one truly let go of expectation? You can make the moment that you wake up to the moment you go to sleep sacred. The keys to success: choice, 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 and choice.